Okay, we're going to see how this goes with my little sand sculpture. I busted out the OG already attacked. Oh, it's still going a little. Still going. I hope the lighting's okay. Today, I want to talk about my September 11th experience. And true to the description, it's not going to be sad. There isn't going to be any politics, and I'm not going to preach about anything. But I had been planning to talk about this on September 11th. Let me just jiggle this a second. I had been planning on talking about this on September 11th, but something happened that made me really start thinking about what I was going to say. And it's because I had an email come through my work email, and it was from somebody that I hadn't thought of in a really long time. And the second I saw the person's name, all of these memories started coming back to me. And I knew then that I wanted to kind of discuss the whole picture of what was happening at that time and not just September 11th. So for this exercise, we're going to call this person Molly. And Molly used to be my supervisor at the place where I made my video about lunchtime at work. And it was the company where she would gather everybody, all of her friends, and they would all go sit in the kitchen and they would just be gossiping and bitching and all of that stuff. And I didn't want to be a part of it. So I would bring a magazine, and then I got accused of being antisocial and all of this stuff. But before we get into that, I want to flip this thing over again. When you want it to go slow, it doesn't go slow. Before we get into all this, I just want to put out the PSA, as I always do at the beginning of my videos, regarding my uncle, Charles Pancheri. He was found in the kitchen of his home on Green Street and pronounced dead of multiple stab wounds on October 4th, 2011. Neighbors say that he had a ladder going up to his back bedroom window. Now, my uncle was in his 70s. There was no need to have a ladder going up to the bedroom window. So obviously an intruder or intruders broke in and violently attacked him. His last name is spelled Panchery. And anyone with information, please contact Union County Crime Stoppers at 908-654-TIPS, 908-654-TIPS, or you can go to www.uctip, so unioncountytip.org. And if you wouldn't mind just giving them any information, the case is cold at this point. But when I spoke to the detective, they assured me that if they did receive any information, they would be glad to reopen the case and take another look at it. Thank you. That's 908-654-TIPS. So I have my Glockenspiel set up, but my microphone is on the other end of the room for my Glockenspiel, so I don't think you're going to be able to hear it, but I'll just sing my theme song as I always do. I think I'm going to end up recording it and then just playing the music and then just sing along to the music. All right, so who's the girl who never picks up her phone? Who's the girl who's never flown a drone? Who's the girl who loves to bitch and moan? Well, her name is MUBBO. So I was at work at my current job, and I saw an email come through from Molly. And I started thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to reply to her? Like, she's going to know that it's me, you know. Not that we're on bad terms or anything, but I haven't thought of her in like a really long time. And I didn't want to start having that dialogue like, oh, how you doing? Oh, okay, what are you up to? So, but then I remembered that she doesn't know that I changed my name. I actually changed my name on 2 separate occasions, and I will make a video talking about that. She was a new supervisor, brand new. This was her first supervisory job, in a company where my beloved worked. That's Mr. Mubbo. And he became aware of an open position in a different department that he worked in than he worked in. And he encouraged me to apply for the job. Now, I had never worked in this line of business before, but he said that they were very open-minded. They were willing to train. You know, you could just, if you show an interest in learning, they'd be glad to teach you and get you up to speed. So I applied for the job and I had an interview, and I first met with the department head. And she was fantastic. She was very personable, very friendly. She was involved in an animal rescue organization, which I had done as well. We hit it off great. Everything was going very well. And she said, okay, I want to introduce you to the person that you're going to be reporting to directly, and her name is Molly. So Molly comes in, the department head leaves, and right off the bat, I could tell that we were probably not going to get along. She was very overeducated because she made sure to go over all of her, education with me to tell her about herself. And she has one of these useless degrees that, unless she's going to plan on starting her own practice with this thing that she studied for, she's probably never going to make any use out of it. So she is in a completely different job than what she went to school for. And that's just how it happens. But she was sure to wave that degree in my face in more than one occasion. So we start talking and she's asking me questions and we get through this interview and it seems like everything's going well. And then she says, we're sitting at a round, conference room table. And she says, okay, why don't you just fill out the rest of your paperwork there, finish filling out your application, the questionnaire. And I'm just going to sit here and make some notes. So she's sitting there on the other side, 2 chairs away from me, and she's making notes, writing notes about me. And I'm supposed to just disregard that and finish some paperwork that I don't care about. I want to know what she's writing. So it was very uncomfortable for me to know that she's assessing me as I'm sitting right there and writing down her thoughts about me. So finally she kind of looks up and she's like, I'm just going to leave you alone to finish your paperwork. I'm like, good. So I wind up getting offered the position and I go in on my first day. It was in early February and my Mr. Mubbo and I actually commuted together because that was one of the perks, for taking this job, because it was about, I'm going to say it was about 40 minutes to 45 minutes, but we're talking about New Jersey traffic. So it was pretty far away. It was in the Morristown area, which is always crazy. You had to take 287 to Route 24. And honestly, I tried to think about this. I don't even know if I could find my way to that building. I've been out of New Jersey for almost 20 years now. And I honestly, I was thinking, how did we get to work? So usually we would take the major highways and, you would always have to find those sneaky shortcuts. I remember at one time we would take we would go through the Watchung Reservation if if we heard of a traffic accident early in the morning. We would have to get on Route 22 for a while and then to 78 or 287 to 24. All I know is at one point we would be driving and the Short Hills Mall would be on our right. And then our exit was not too much farther up. It was not a good area for traffic. It was just insanity because you get on these roads where there's no way off. There's no exits for miles and miles. You're just stuck there in the traffic. So my first day, I start there and I find out that I'm going to be answering the department phone. Now there's only the department head, and then there's Molly, and then there's me. So Molly took on some new responsibilities. So she was like moving some stuff over to me. So I got to answer the phone, which I absolutely hate doing. Like, I just answer your own phone. So not only did I answer the phone, but no matter how busy I was, Molly was not going to pick up the phone. So there would be times when I would go and make copies. Like, we had like a main copy room, all these big machines, the fax machine, the printers. So you would have to go to that. And on my way back from making copies, I would hear the phone ringing, and she would just be sitting there, like, not answering the phone. I'm like, okay, so this is really like all on me. Like, I have to answer this phone. The first day, there was a snowstorm coming, and Mr. Mubbo could not leave. There was no official announcement that said, hey, there's a bad snowstorm coming. If you have to leave, just do what you got to do and get home safely. Molly left, right after lunch. Mr. Mubbo was stuck there till regular time, 5 o'clock, 5:30. My first night going home, it took us 7 hours to get home, and that's not even an exaggeration. There was just cars like everywhere trying to get anywhere and everywhere, and people sliding out and getting stuck. And I'm like, oh my God, is this going to be like my future? Because I do not like to drive in bad weather. So I could see that this was going to be an issue if Mr. Mubbo couldn't drive. And honestly, I would never have taken this job. For me, it was too far. It was too far, and I didn't like the highways. I don't want to be bothered. Just give me something local. But Mr. Mubbo convinced me that it was a good opportunity, and it was. I learned a lot by working there, and I was like in a brand new like line of business and learning how to, work in there. So as time went on, we actually moved buildings. So we were in the smaller building. These were all like it was in an office complex, and I think there were 6 buildings, and they were all like beautiful, like Class A and like Class B buildings. So we went from a Class B to like across the street to a Class A. Now, a Class A, just to tell the differences, like the Class A building that we were in had like marble floors, and it had like a water feature like in the hall, in the main foyer, and there was a really nice cafeteria. It was like really, really nice buildings. And the Class B building, it had like marble floors, but no no water feature, and there was just like a little coffee area versus, the Class A's. The Class A was like a show place. It was absolutely beautiful. So as of this time, thank God they switched to voice over internet protocol phone lines. So like your phone call was actually come through your computer, which was a brand new thing back then. In what was it, 1999, 2000. So this was great because that meant I didn't have to answer the phone anymore. The phone would ring through the department head's computer, and she would pick it up herself, and I don't need to be worried about that anymore. The only bad part for me was that Molly and I were no longer in separate cubicles. They decided to renovate a medium-sized utility room and turn it into a small office with 2 pretty large desks. They were like corner desks, so it went like around the whole corner of the like one corner, and then her desk was like the caddy corner, so she was like diagonal from me. Excuse me. And I really didn't like that. I like separation, and I think it's a big mistake to force people to like be together in that kind of environment, like all day long, every day. There was no windows. It was just, there was a door, and it was always really hot in there. And like with my rosacea, as I mentioned, like I would get these rosacea flare ups and it was really embarrassing. And I was still on the Metrogel back then, which eventually like didn't do anything. I was just putting it on like crazy and it didn't help at all. So I was walking around like a bright red like face and nose, like pretty much because it was just so hot in there and so stuffy. So our work was divided up where I would do most of the data entry and Molly would do like other projects and things like that. Her friends would come by and she would point out that I'm doing all the work now, and she gets to sit there and read magazines and do do research, and she doesn't really have a specific job. Her job is whatever comes up, and I do all the grunt work, basically all the manual, which I didn't mind. I'm an introvert. I like working like that. I like, just give me a pile of work and just leave me alone. So she would say that on more than one occasion that she would point out that she thought it was really funny that she's younger than me, but like she's the manager. Like, don't I feel weird about that? I'm like, I don't think about that at all. Like, I'm here to like do a job. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's how you could tell someone's a good manager. Like, she had that new manager smell to her, where like this was the first time she was ever in a position where she had like a direct report. But like, to me, you don't point that out to somebody. Like, oh, don't you feel funny that I'm younger than you, but I'm in charge of you? It just made me feel a little prickly, and I started to pull away. And I found out, like, really that, I mean, there's that saying that says people don't quit jobs, they quit managers, and that is the absolute truth. Like, she would say things that made no sense to me. She would use these like big words that she heard somewhere, like behoove, but she really had no idea what it meant. And she would use words like milk toast in an email, but she spelled it like MILKTOAST, and just try to make herself seem a lot more. I'm sure she was very book smart, but in terms of doing like day-to-day work, she liked to just to make her education think that can carry her. I have notes here. She didn't think I was very funny at all about some things. Like, this was back in the day where you had a screensaver and you could actually put text like up on your screensaver, and it would just like scroll across like have a nice day or hello or something like that. So she wrote on hers, be right back, if she was away from her desk. So I decided to write be left front, because she's be right back on be left front. And she saw that on my computer, and she said that was very inappropriate for the workplace, and it was unprofessional, and that I should change it right away. Now, look, I take my job very seriously. My current job where I am, I've been there for 15 years, but you're allowed to have a little fun. Like, you can have fun at work. It's okay. She would say that being that she's now a manager, she needed to have her own parking spot, and she shouldn't be in the same category as I am. And if it comes to it, she's going to pull rank and go to upper management and demand that she should have her own parking spot. I'm like, okay, whatever. It was a really, like I said, I was in charge of most of the data entry, and it was a really quiet room. Like, there was just no noise because we were off on like a side hallway, and we would get people walking by, but they were like walking by on their way to like their area. Like, our area didn't really have anything. So I decided, this was back in the old days where your computers, your hard drive actually sat on your desk, and then like you had only one monitor, and your monitor sat on the hard drive, and your hard drive had a CD drive in it. So you could pop a CD in and listen to some music. I'm just going to take a drink really quick. And I would put in a CD and I would put it really low because some people don't like listening to music. And every single time that she felt that I was doing something she didn't like, I would just hear from across the room, Mabel? Mabel? Yes? I can hear your music and it's very distracting to me. Okay. So I'll turn it down. I can still hear it. I can still hear it. Okay, I'll just turn it off. And then we'd be sitting there, my music's off, and she's like, I can still hear it. I can still hear you. I'm like, I don't have it on. Oh, well, somebody's playing music somewhere, so I'm hearing something. It's not me. Like, it was such a mistake to put us in this, like, two very, very different people, two very different working styles. And now we're like stuck in this room for 9 hours a day, just, constantly just, I'm just trying to get my work done. There was this one time where, so going back to the music thing. So I says, all right, well, I want to listen to music. Like, that's, if you're an introvert and music like really helps, especially if you're just doing like boring, repetitive things. There's no need. I'm not answering anybody's phone. I don't need to listen for anything. I'm left alone for the whole day except for her. So I brought in headphones and I plugged in the headphones and I'm just, listening. And I had my headphones on and she came in to the office room and she does a double take and I'm like, oh boy, I'm going to hear about this now. Now, there are many other people in that building who would wear headphones just to like block out the noise of like, people talking or, any kind of machines running, you hear the printer or the whatever, phones ringing, people on the phone. And she stood behind me again, like, Mobo? Yeah. I just want to tell you that I think that wearing headphones at work is very unprofessional. And I just said, noted. And she went and she sat down and I could like every 5 seconds, she was like, Mobo, like to see if I could hear her. And then if I couldn't hear her, that was her excuse for me not to wear headphones. I'm not falling for that. So this went on, like, it just got a little worse, like every day. Now this was over like a 3-year period. So like I started there in like 98. And so I'm building up to like the 2001 story. And trust me, I'm not doing this to character assassinate her. I'm trying to paint the picture for like what is going to happen on 9/11 so that you understand like why she acted the way that she did. It got to the point where I actually took a class. I went into the department head and I said, look, Molly is driving me bananas. And I says, I need you to validate that it's not just me. Like there's something going on here. I'm not seeing things the way that she's seeing them. And the department head said, look, you have to understand she's new in this position. And, maybe she doesn't know how to relate to somebody. You're her first direct report. She's still like finding her feet. I don't know. So she suggests that I take a class. Now, my company would pay for classes if it was a class that like qualified under their like regulations as to something that would help you in your job. So I actually took a class called Dealing with Difficult People, thinking that would give me the tools to just be able to just deal with her. And I can't really say that it helped at all, other than to just turn it off, like just to like tune her out and realize that no matter who works for her or with her, she's going to be the same way, and that it's nothing personal with me. I think that's the most valuable thing that I came away with. Another thing that she would get mad at is that in the summertime, our office would close on Fridays at 3 o'clock. So if you were in a good place with your work, you could leave at 3. Now, she was upset about this because her work hours were 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. and my work hours were 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. So if we close at 3, that means that I'm getting an extra hour of freedom that she's not getting. And she actually went and complained that she doesn't think that it's fair that people get to leave at 3 because she only gets 1 hour where she gets to leave early, and people that work 8 to 5 get 2 hours where they get to leave early. I'm like, all right, well, come in at 8 then. Come in at 8 and then leave it, or change your hours from 8 to 3. I mean, 8 to 5 instead of 7 to 4. Like, it's really easy if you want the 2 hours. It was just like little nitpicky stuff like that. And so I think I've kind of put across what I wanted to put across. So we're going to now talk about what happened on 9/11. Now, 9/11 was a weird day in and of itself because it was a Tuesday, which isn't weird, but everybody came into work except for the upper managers who were going to be going on, it was some kind of retreat where they went for like a training day, and they were going to Pennsylvania, and I think they all like met at the office, and then they carpooled together. Like they all like, cut down the amount of cars and they just met up and left. So the office was like mostly empty that day because the managers were gone, and I was looking forward to just a nice, peaceful day. And all of a sudden, one of the architects walks by our door and he says, "Did you hear?" And we're like, "What?" And he says, "Some idiot just flew a plane into the World Trade Center." We're like, "What?" And we're thinking like, what? How can it, like, how do you hit the World Trade Center? Now, what a lot of people don't realize, unless you're like a local to the area and you were listening to like the news, is that there was this stunt man who was going around and like trying to do these stunts where he like flew a plane and they would parachute out of it and like try to land on something. Like just the week before, he parachuted over the Statue of Liberty, and he wanted to land on Ellis Island, like on this, where the Statue of Liberty is, Liberty Island. And his parachute actually got tangled up on the torch. So the rescue helicopters had to come and like cut him down and all this. And for a minute there, I actually thought naively, oh, it's this idiot again. What is he doing now? Maybe he's trying to parachute onto the World Trade Centers, whatever dumb thing he was up to. Like, we were so naive. We were so incredibly naive back then. So a little while later, Mr. Mubbo peeks in. He's like, "Another plane just hit the World Trade Center." And I'm like, what? I'm like, all right, well, there's something going on. I'm like, a Cessna, like a little prop plane? He's like, "No, it's a huge like jetliner full of people." And I'm like, oh my God, what is happening here? And I turn around and I start typing on my computer, CNN.com. And I hear behind me, Mubbo? Yes. I know that you're concerned about what's happening right now, but we really shouldn't be using the internet for non-working purposes. Now, I'm not a violent person, but so help me, it's really the closest I've ever gotten to becoming violent. However, I held it in. I was ready to just start screaming at her, and I turned around and I says, do you not realize what is happening here? There are people flying planes into office buildings. And guess where we are? We're in an office building next to a jet port. Our main drag, where I worked, so there were like office buildings on the left-hand side of this like middle road, and then like office buildings on the right. That middle road, jetliners would line up with that middle road and like fly over the highway and then land at, I think it was Morristown Airport. And it's so, that area is like so known for this that actually they filmed an episode of The Sopranos at our building. I've never seen the episode, but apparently like, I know that Michael Imperioli was on the grounds because the property manager actually got a picture of him. And I think the shot that they wanted was them standing on this road outside of our building and the jetliner like flying like really low overhead, because it happened like all day long. So I'm like, I don't know how I can impress upon you that, you know, we have airplanes flying overhead constantly, and any one of them could just veer off and like smash into our building. So after that happened, people were just walking around in a daze. No work was getting done. There were no managers there to even like rein everybody in. Everybody was like away from the desk or, you know, on the phone with people. And Molly and I knew someone who worked in Tower 1, which was the second building to get hit. And Molly decides that she's going to call the World Trade Center, and she's going to try to get this guy on the phone to find out what is. I'm not making this up. She's going to call the World Trade Center to try to get the guy that we know on the phone to see what is going on there. She wants to know what's going on. She doesn't want to use the internet, but she wants to call the World Trade Center, where people are making their last calls to their loved ones and trying to, you know, get emergency services, and people, you know, you should be keeping the lines clear for emergency. She's going to call there. So she puts it on speakerphone and she calls the guy that we know in the World Trade Center. And there was just dead silence, like not even a ring, not even a message, your party cannot be reached. It was just complete silence. And that silence was so like, it just made you realize that those people were there, you know, an hour ago, and now they just weren't anymore. Like there's nothing to connect to. There's nothing there. And as the day went on, you know, we started hearing about like was it the Pentagon that got hit? And, you know, now we're all trying to reach, you know, the managers somehow, you know, they're to find out if they're still on route or were they coming back, or, you know, because traffic, you know, I can imagine what it's like. So where I was, I'm going to say I was probably about 20 miles from where all this was happening. So we couldn't get in touch with them. You know, we don't know if they're coming back or are they still going to this training. So IT brings up a television from the what do you call it, like the AV room, and they set up a TV, because we had TVs in the, like we had monitors like up on the walls, but they were like just for company announcements, like they weren't hooked up to like a cable or anything, or any kind of television service. So everybody's just like standing around like watching the coverage on TV, and all of a sudden like we get like an announcement, like it starts just like filtering through, like, you know, there was no like announcement that if you wanted to go home, you could, you know, you could just go, because nobody was going to be doing any work. So we all start leaving. I remember I took my own car in that morning, and Mr. Mubbo was going to stay for a while. And he's like, just go home. I'll meet you at home, whatever. And I remember walking outside, and it was a gloriously beautiful day. Like, the weather was just perfect. It was one of those still kind of summery, warm September days, but there was a light breeze. And I remember just looking up in the sky and like thinking, if you ever seen the movie Poltergeist, there's a scene where Craig T. Nelson like looks down at Cuesta Verde and he says, how can anybody be having a problem on a day like this? It's something to that effect. And that really resonated with me, because it was just a picture perfect day, but like 20 miles from where I was standing was one of the worst things that has happened in this country. And I remember staring at the sky, and it was the bluest sky I had ever seen. You know that old saying, what's that old saying? On a beautiful day, you can see forever. That is exactly what it was. It was the most gloriously deep blue sky I had ever seen in my life. And I've never seen the sky quite that color again. And then later we kind of found out that, well, the sky was that color because of all the gas that was being released, and, you know, the chemicals were mixing with the atmosphere, and it was, you know, giving the sky this particular color. And I don't remember if we went into work the next day. I can't remember. I think it was that kind of thing where if you feel like coming in, come in. Because some people feel better if they come in, you know, if they give their mind something to do. So Molly, the next time I saw Molly, she told me that she was upset because something that she normally does on Tuesdays, they canceled it, and she didn't understand why they canceled it. And she also went into a store for ice cream, and there was a guy with a turban on working there, and she was scared to go there. Like, she was scared to go in there because there's a guy with a turban. And I'm like, oh my God. So this is like the new America now. Like, people were so confused. Sikhs, who they're not exactly on the side of America, but they're not exactly with the terrorists either. You know, they were getting beaten up in their places of business, and everybody, you know, you didn't know who the enemy was. You didn't know who these people were that were trying to kill us. Oh, I'll tell you something else. Oh, I got to tell you this story really quick. So I used to go to this hairdresser, and she was telling me this story about, she lived in this neighborhood not too far from where I live now, and she saw this guy like on the street, and like something about him like just didn't look right. And the people in small towns, if you live in a small town, you know, they're very nosy. And she approached him, and she started asking questions like, oh, you live around here? Are you seeing you know, you got relatives that you're visiting or whatever? And he was very evasive, and he wasn't like answering any of her questions. And she didn't think anything of it at that time. I mean, who would? But then it turned out that the terrorists that stole the plane from Boston Airport, that hijacked the plane from Boston Airport, actually came down from Canada into my state, and they stayed here, and they actually ate at a restaurant that we used to go to all the time, and they were like in our neighborhood. And she said that she's sorry that she didn't tell the police. And I'm like, well, tell the police what? Like, what are you going to tell them? Like, there was nothing to tell. So if somebody doesn't want to answer a question, you couldn't predict that he was going to hijack a plane. But it was just, and she says, yeah, you know, I kind of think about that. Like, what could I have done? I'm like, you can't just say this he's being evasive. He must be up to something. So Molly was also upset because she was getting married, and she was afraid that her flights were going to be affected She was getting married, which I actually went to her wedding, and it was freaking awesome. There's one thing I forgot to mention is that when Molly was outside of work, she was like the greatest person ever, and it was such a total like mind fuck. Like she would ask if I wanted to go shopping with her, and we'd go shopping. We'd have fun. She would laugh. She was nice, very sweet, funny, personable. And then we would like step back into the office, and she would just turn into like a bitch on wheels. And I don't understand like how her personality was so affected by, just by having the title of manager. And I don't want to be a manager. I never wanted a direct report. I don't want to be in charge of anybody. To me, it seems like it's more trouble than what it's worth. But anyway, that's my 9/11 story. I know there were other things I wanted to say, but as I took notes, I'm saying this just, it sounds like I'm trashing Molly, and that's not what I wanted to do. I just wanted to give you the idea of who was with me on that very tragic day. Thanks for watching. Talk to you next time. MUBBO.